Good evening and a warm welcome to those attending and also to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is a meeting of the Children, Families and Education Select Committee. My name is Councillor Heena Makwana and I'm the chair of this committee. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the broadcast. Please note that members of the committee may be using tablets or laptops to view the agenda. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For those in the room, please switch any mobile devices to silent before the meeting starts, and when you're invited to speak, please ensure you turn your microphone on so that you can be heard in the recording. For those watching via YouTube, if you're so minded, you can complete one of our resident feedback forms. These can be found in the information section underneath the YouTube video. These forms are intended to help us improve the way that we run our meetings. Before we go through the agenda, I'd like to introduce colleagues in the room. So, to my right, I have Councillor Gohill, Smallwood and Batt. To my left, Ryan Dell, Democratic Services Officer, and Councillors Sweeting, Garg, Gill and Mr Tony Little, our co-opting member. Because we have many officers joining us this evening, I'd like you all to introduce yourselves, please. Taz, can you start us off? Thank you.
I'm Christine Corser, Director for Children's Social Care.
Poppy Reddy, Assistant Director for Care Support and Transition.
Abby Preston, Director of Education and SEND.
Natalie Craig, Service Manager for Care Delivery.
Donna Hugh, Assistant Director for Care Provision Services.
Alex Common, Director of Safeguarding and Care.
Lisa Steele, Virtual School Head Teacher.
Catherine Angelini, Assistant Director for Education.
Councillor Colleen Sullivan, Fostering and Permanence Panel Representative.
Andy Goodwin, Head of Strategic Finance and Deputy Section 151 Officer.
Louisa Henson, Head of Finance for Children's and SEND.
Julie Kelly, Corporate Director for Children's Services.
Great, thank you all, and it's good that we've tested the microphones as well. So, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Ryan?
Yeah, we have no apologies. Okay.
Great. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting. Are there any? Great. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 25th of September. Do we agree the minutes? Thank you. Item 4, to confirm that the items of business marked as Part 1 will be considered in public and the items marked as Part 2 will be considered in private. There are no Part 2 items, so we move straight to item 5, which is the Budget and Spending Report. Julie.
Thank you. This is the third report that's come to this committee, so hopefully everybody's now familiar with the layout and the tracking and we can follow it. You'll be delighted to know I'm not going to read it out to you all, but hopefully highlight what the changes are and where we're at and then take some questions. We've had an adverse movement of £200,000, so in the wrong direction that we would hope for, and that is mainly related to the cost of care. I have reread the report and it says care demand. It's not about more care, it's the cost of the care we're providing, and it is a very volatile market as we've sort of explained and gone through before. The designated schools grant has remained no movement, which is, from my view, positive. We are hoping that we might see some positive movement as the new school term started and we work through, but right now the forecast seems accurate and robust, so we're pleased with that. And then our savings plan. The plans that we have are going very well. There is a lot of savings already banked. There is a lot that you'll see in the chart there that are green, and you know that's pretty 99% confident that we're able to bank them. You'll see there is a small amount of, well, it's all relative. In relation to the savings, it's a small amount, but still a substantial amount of money of 273,000 that is still sitting in amber. That is related to our care offer. That relates to our increase in residential provision. We are almost there. If we get to where we want to be in the next 2 weeks, that will move. So I would say we have a reasonable level of confidence that by the end of the financial year, those savings will be made. But I'm still in Ofsted's hands, and if Ofsted give us a registration, then we'll make them. But they have done the visit to the new provision So we're just waiting to hear. That's a very short whistle-stop tour, but happy to take questions.
Great, thank you, Julie. Councillor Sweeting.
With December the 18th looming, which is the time when the Cabinet will be presenting the bones of the Council's budget for next year, will our service area have to declare a deficit budget? Because, yes, we've made the savings, and well done to all the officers. It's really very good. Some of that will be from capitalisation. However, have we not almost the same amount in overspend? And it's still rising. You've just told us it's still rising. So are we as a service likely to have to declare that we can't make those other savings which have appeared, those other overspends that have appeared? And if we are saying that, what is a plan of action between now, not just the December Cabinet, I know, but when we have a budget to consider in February?
I think Andy might want to say something on this as well, but I'll say from a children's services perspective at the moment, we are still in the position of going through staff chambers. We are looking at the proposals. The increase, hopefully, in our residential provision will enable us to model different costs next year. The family help work has already started, but it is incredibly challenging and incredibly tight. But the thing that's pushing us into an overspend is the cost of care, and if we can utilise those units to reduce the cost of care, we have got a good chance of coming in within budget. But it really is a work in progress. We are having regular meetings, we're having proposals, we're testing them along, are they the right things to do? What impact will that have? What will the numbers look like? I have been supported by Louisa particularly and colleagues, but I think the answer is that we don't really know yet where we're going to land. There's going to be more sessions next week where it's not just about children's services, it's about the council as a whole and what will impact either way. Hopefully we will have a firm answer when we come back in December, and that will be clear. But there is still a lot of work going on, and I have reasonable confidence that we can still reduce some of the costs, but the savings that are there are not going to be as great as this year. So I've not proposed 5 million savings, but I'm making proposals to reduce what is currently overspent. I don't know if Andy wants to say a bit more about the process to get there.
Sure, thank you for the question, Councillor. So we are preparing the budget for 26-27. As you say, that will go to Cabinet on December the 18th, and then we'll be back here in the Select Committee in January to talk you through the proposals. In terms of whether there's going to be a shortfall, deficit, or a surplus, it's looking like it most likely be a deficit, but there's lots of uncertainty around government funding going forward. We should know more on the 26th of November when we get the autumn statement and the policy updates, but we're probably not going to know our final allocations from the Fair Funding Review until around about the third week of December, so by which time we've already dispatched Cabinet papers, and Cabinet could even happen before it's issued, which is typical really, and that's how it's played out over the last 10 years. Given the big changes in the funding horizon, government were looking to issue numbers by 30th of November, but they've just pushed that back, so it's unlikely we're going to know. So to say today whether we're going to have what the budget position is going to be looking like for next year is actually quite tough at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we come to the DSG budget. Yes, we've reduced it yearly, but it is still an overspend of 12 million. And the only way of getting that back, we've put in a lot of work to increase capacity in our send, and it would be good to have an audit of that actually and how we're going on that. But the second part of it is this inclusivity agenda. And I mean, the minutes of this meeting, actually, the last meeting, mention how important that is. And this all predicates on how the schools are saying yes to this, are being part of this. So it might not be possible at this meeting to have the detail on that, but how is it going with our schools? What are our schools saying? And how are we supporting schools to move that agenda forward?
Thank you, Councillor. Before I answer the second part of the question, can I just clarify the first part, because I wasn't clear I fully understood what you were asking around. You said something about audits to do with SEND?
Basically, there's a lot of capital work that's being done, etc., etc. I mean, the Harefield SEND capacity there, and it would be good to have where we are with existing in-house SEND capacity, and that which is in train is being built, basically. And although we've had information on this as part of the school organisation plan, it would be good to have an update on that, because I know things have moved, even with the Harefield scheme.
Thank you, Councillor, that makes sense. So where we are, we have the SEND sufficiency policy or strategy that we brought to committee earlier in the year. We do an annual update on that, so you will have a more detailed update on the capital works. We are delivering on the places. There's a big project going on, as you referenced, with Meadow in Harefield, and we're also building more, particularly looking at secondary SRP capacity, because that's where, as we sort of touched on this before, that we've got a shortage in secondary compared to primary. So all those works are moving forward in the right direction, which is really positive. We do need to be mindful that we currently still place quite a high percentage of children in special schools, and our data suggests we're third highest in London around placing in special schools. So it is more about moving towards mainstream inclusion, looking at more units, looking at what schools need to support that. We've been doing a lot of work around inclusion and how we can support schools, and we had a really positive high needs group meeting this week where we talked with our secondary colleagues, and it's certainly becoming a key topic in their Hillingdon secondary head teachers groups. So we're working with our schools around that and trying to understand what support they need to make that as successful as possible. We shared this week with our schools and with the high needs group the update on the EHCPs and mainstream figures, and I'm pleased to say that it's still continuing to increase every term, both in primary and secondary. So that trend is really encouraging, but that's just raw data around numbers. It doesn't tell us the school's approach to inclusion and so on. So there's lots of work going on. We're continuing with the Centre for ADHD and Autism project, and we're looking to potentially roll that out further. We're also looking at some special school outreach projects and some creative ideas. There's lots of work going on, but the positive thing is that the data's going in the right direction. The key bit for us is, instead of just looking at the bottom line, it's trying to make sure that the schools that we talked about lots in this committee, the magnet schools, aren't just attracting more and more children, and that there's more of an even, equitable split. So that continues, that work, and obviously with the reforms that we know are coming imminently, that's going to be a key area. So we'll continue to progress what we're doing, but we'll wait for the reforms to come out to see how we can support that even further moving forward.
Great. Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a question about the DSG as well. When I was a kid, one of my favourite programmes was Postman Pat. And I wondered whether we had had any correspondence or news from the Department of Education to tell us how Hillingdon is getting on with reducing the deficit. As I know this is something affecting many councils, but I'd like to know how Hillingdon is getting on and whether we've heard anything from the Department of Education on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, positively. I mean, we've been waiting for updates around the existing financial payments that were outstanding as part of the safety valve agreement. We are aware that the safety valve project has stopped, and they're looking at potentially other sort of versions of that moving forward. But in that time, I think they're potentially looking to release more information around the payments and any new programmes when they release the information around the reforms. But what was really encouraging is that the Department for Education wrote to the Council to recognise our hard work and the impact that the team are having on improving outcomes and being more financially efficient in doing so. And that was something that we were incredibly proud to receive, and grateful to the DFE for recognising that, because it is very difficult when there's lots of sort of national things that are being developed, and obviously not being in the safety valve in the same way as other LAs, i.e. having the sort of public reporting on progress as we were before in enhanced monitoring. It was really positive to see that letter and that recognition, which was fantastic. So, yeah, we're going to continue to keep trying to improve outcomes, and as I said before, we won't look to compromise that in any way, but also doing so in a financially efficient manner.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if we could place on record the sort of congratulations of this committee for a job well done. Congratulations, Abby, and congratulations to your team for delivering that. Well done.
We did that last time.
Let's do it again.
Mr. Little.
Thank you. A different aspect of the same question. I also endorse the thanks for the direction of travel in relation to bringing pupils back and getting them in the mainstream as far as possible. But I'd be grateful if you could confirm or refute an impression I've gained that the rebanding of expenditure within schools means that most of them are trying to deliver the same service but with a lot less money.
Thank you, Tony. It's not quite as simple as that. So the banding review took 2 years to conclude, and the reason it took a long time was because our school leaders led this project along with a specialist consultant to make sure that the banding was fit for purpose for our children and our area and our needs. The change is that the banding model we had before was totally different. We had one model that covered mainstream and special schools on the same scale and funding amounts. And what we saw was, we had very high funding for schools or for individual children compared to national. And we've looked at benchmarking, we've done lots of comparisons, both in actual expenditure on top-up and on comparing banding frameworks. But what you would also see was that you could get children in mainstream who are on higher funding than children in special schools. So I think at the time that it was created, it was fit for purpose, but over time as needs progressed the way they did and more schools were built and so on, it became quite confused. So the new banding model is totally different, and it's recognised feedback from young people, and every time we speak to young people, they say they do not want to have one-to-one support. They don't want an adult stuck to them in a classroom. And back when the original banding was in place, it was more common to have one child in a class with an EHCP. So you would have that one adult offering one-to-one. Nowadays, that's very unusual that you find one child in a class with an EHCP or with wider SEND needs. Now, you'd often have 5 children, for example, and you can't have 5 adults stood next to individual children who are trying to learn. But also, like I said, most importantly, it's not effective, it creates dependency. So the new model focuses more on a group approach. So looking at the needs, it's very defined. So the local area is agreed language that is common across education, health and social care. For example, using the term severe. That was used interchangeably by professionals before, by what they saw as severe, whereas now we have an agreed term as to what severe means and what a small group means. So now we look at a flexible model of support. Most children and the provision that they need does not require one-to-one support, and nor does it benefit those young people. Often it's better to be supported within a group where there's common needs and the group can learn together. So the new banding model focuses on exactly what support the young people need and is approached in that way. So it's not lowered the funding. The funding per hour has gone up significantly from the original model, but the way in which we fund that is different. So we look at a class, we look at children and what their needs are across the week instead of just saying they need one-to-one all the time or they need 1-to-2. We look at the different provision and we have a model that offers a flexible approach to support those needs. So the values in some cases, I mean, I said the banding was high, very high in benchmarking and other comparisons that we had before. So in some cases there will be a decrease, but we also have young people that have an increase in funding. It's not a direct science of, they're on X band before and now they're on that band. It's very much around what their needs are. And I've said the most important bit is that we're taking those young people's feedback into account, but this has been led by our schools who have put this together, and we're really proud. We think it's a really strong framework. And one of the other benefits that comes with that framework is we will, once all the children have transitioned over by the end of this financial year, we'll have a really clear idea about needs coming through the system, which helps us significantly with planning and so on.
Okay, great. Mr. Little, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you for the very full answer. Since it's such a substantial change, what sort of feedback have you had from the schools about the transition?
So what we've seen is generally our schools have been really supportive because obviously they've led this model. It's not something that the local authority has created and imposed on our schools. They've all been involved. So what we've seen is our schools are supportive of the model. What we've found is our out-of-borough schools have found it a little bit harder to understand because each local area has a different approach. So where we tend to see challenge is from our out-of-borough schools. And there will be the odd case where schools aren't happy with the banding, but we do have an agreed approach whereby we use evidence to look at any other judgments, so it's not a conclusive answer. And we do have exceptional support as well for those cases that are very specialist and need something different to what the banding offers. So I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question around capitalisation. The report states that capitalisation continues to be used to reduce the overspend. How much of the current budget is currently reliant on capitalisation, and when does the Council intend to phase the use of this out?
Thank you for the question. So the table talk about transformation capitalisation, so that's when you're funding activity that generates a benefit and an ongoing saving for the council. So it's technically it's revenue expenditure funded as through capital means, so you can fund the expenditure through capital receipts. That's basically disposal of assets. The government have extended the use of those powers through to March 28. So the council has the potential to use those powers until then. Clearly, when we're disposing of assets and getting receipts in, we want to make sure that we're taking due diligence and using them for the best purposes. That, you know, when we're selling these assets, that we're making good use of that money and representing good value for money. We are constantly reviewing this position. So there's always going to be a risk that we don't hit the disposals target. So therefore, there could be a need to revert some of that money back into revenue. There's also the case of we review this every month to ensure that it meets the government's criteria for the use of capital receipts. So it's constantly kept under review. So in the budget report, we will be looking at the use of transformation that's in the base budget. Not all of the transformation activities were in the base budget, because when you're doing one-off kind of implementation costs, you just we set the budget in February 25 with 17 million of spend to kind of look at how we deliver our £34 million saving programme, and then as those kind of disposals will start to dry up, then we'll start to review that and with government policy. So it's an ongoing review. But I think you'll wait till we see what happens in the December budget report, and we'll look then to see whether we want to continue to use these powers or if we want to use capital receipts for other purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Batt.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at paragraph 9, we note that sort of independent and out-of-borough unit placement costs will come down by concentrating more on the SEN support in borough. I'm just wondering how we can ensure that this doesn't really dilute the quality of provision for some of the most vulnerable children.
Thank you, Councillor. So we've done a lot of work around this and had really positive results. And what I would say is independent sectors does not mean higher quality or better outcomes or provision. One of the benefits of the in-borough provision is we have much closer oversight of standards, and we work closely with our schools, so there's a partnership there. So if there are any challenges, we can support and understand that quickly. It's much more difficult with independent schools, because they're not within our remit to be able to influence the quality and standards of in the same way. We also have children travelling out of Borough quite a lot, long transport times, so we do a lot of work with our schools. We work very closely with our special schools, so the quality of them is really fantastic. We're incredibly lucky in Hillingdon and have a lot of expertise in that sector, so they offer really strong provision.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this item? Councillor Sweeting?
Sort of coming to accommodation, the policy of providing additional accommodation by way of various means. How is that going? And we've got a couple of planning applications in for new children's home facilities. So is this by the council actually purchasing property, or are we leasing property, or negotiating with a company that's got various properties? So how is that sort of policy going in achieving more temporary accommodation, which will reduce our costs and actually deliver more capacity in that area?
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm taking by that you're talking about accommodation for children rather than temporary accommodation in terms of housing accommodation. We do have we did do a comprehensive review of what the needs are in the borough, and we have different approaches for different type of needs. We do build. We've just finished building some new homes, which Julie already mentioned. They're part of our saving plan, and they are the ones who've been visited by Ofsted, and we're waiting for a decision in terms of registration, and on that hinges that sort of red delivery in the budget. We're also looking at some properties that we leased, and we are also looking at anything that might need to be bought. But at the moment, we haven't bought anything off the market for children's services because, well, we're not developing anything right now that we bought off the market, because we build and we're looking at some of the properties that we also leased. But having said that, the old development plan, it's not a beginning and end. We're always going to keep it under review, and we're always going to try to address the needs of our children in different ways.
So are these children's homes, I know 6 have been mentioned in past reports, and we've got 2 planning applications in at the moment. Are the others going to be spread out more evenly throughout the borough? Because when we've had information on this, care leavers, etc., it's been very much concentrated in certain areas of the borough. So is it sort of our policy now to even things out so that the borough is fully represented as a whole?
I understand, and I'll provide some reassurance that in terms of building any children's home, we have to go through a very rigorous process of doing a location assessment. They have to be in places that are safe for children. They have to be close to access to transport, to education, and various other things. So regardless where they are in the borough, they will have to go to the same process of scrutiny, and they have to go to the same process of ensuring that access to what we have. The other thing that I would say in terms of the number of children's homes, there is a limit, I think, to which we want to have children's homes in a borough, because not all the children who are looked after for safety reasons it's appropriate for them to be in a borough. So we're never going to aim to have necessarily 100% of our children living in a borough, because sometimes it's not safe for them to do so. But based on where we are now, and you did mention 6 homes, and we have 2 others that we opened a couple of years ago. And we do have another 8 beds that we're delivering to various parts of the borough. So based on our information, based on the data we have at the moment, what we have now should help us to shift that balance in terms of dependency on the external cost and dependency on the provision that are external to the borough. The other thing that I will add, and it kind of links a bit into the SEND school as well. It's quite important to make sure that we have, as much as possible, and when safe to do so, to have placements in the borough. Because in addition to having that sort of, obviously working with our providers, with our partners, we also deliver those softer benefits for our children. When they're closer to their communities, they're closer to their families, they're closer to their friends, they stay at the same school, they stay at the same GP. They have all those provisions, and being in a borough, we have a very strong partnership with our partners around the provision for children, and it gives us a lot of ability to make sure that they receive the right support at the right time, and we can work with the partners to improve that. It's much more difficult to do that when the child lives somewhere on the other side of Manchester.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think I'll bring this agenda item to a close. So thank you, Julie. If you need to leave, please. Oh, you're here for the next. Okay, great. So we just need to note this report. Do we note it? Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6, then the annual performance report. Julie.
I think this is the first time it's come in this format. At least this is a new format. It does what it says in the tin. It shows you the measurements and benchmarking for last year, and I believe we're going to have a biannual one that will come quite soon in the back of it, because we felt that by the time it comes it's already out of date. So like before, I'm not going to go through everything. I'm sure people have had a chance to look at it and will have areas that they want to talk to me about. There is the overview at the beginning, which is nothing new to the things that we talk about in the budget, really. Where are the things that we're doing well? The things that we're doing well are the most cost-effective things. Where are the pressure points and the things that we can do better, particularly around placement efficiency and managing demand. So they go hand in hand, the performance, the quality and the cost. It's there. I'm going to just leave it at that, because there are a lot of slides, so I would rather you direct me to the bits that you want to know a bit more about rather than I direct you, if that's okay.
Great, thank you so much. And yes, I think on behalf of the committee, myself for sure, I think the presentation of the report is really, really good. It's very clear, it's very concise, so thank you to the officers for putting this together. Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chair. I'd echo the Chair's words about the presentation, I thought, and the report. I thought it was excellently presented and laid out. I just have a quick question about the child protection plan increase. So I noticed it increased to 240. And I was just wondering if that, is that because of maybe a rise in complexity within the families, or is that because we've improved our systems of identifying? I was just hoping you could bring a bit more clarity to that, please.
I'm afraid it's neither sort of more demand and more complexity. Over the year, it's much of a muchness. We get peaks and troughs. These count children, not just planned. So you might have a family that has one child. You might then get two families that have 4 or 5 children, and that can fluctuate the numbers. But what we do have relatively, and it's no in here, and I can provide it another time if you like, in terms of the benchmarking, we still have relatively low levels of child protection plans. We have higher levels of child protection investigations, and we are doing a bit of work on that, because that's not always just a good thing either, because we don't want to overly intervene in people's lives being subject to child protection investigation. But there is also the flip side, that we need some assurance that we have looked at everything and we're satisfied that the children aren't unsafe. So it's been relatively stable. If we have a look, we started the year at 250, ended at 240, and we had the peaks and troughs. So there's been nothing in the last year that was unusual or weird or wonderful that showed a change in our demographics.
Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, if this was strictly come dancing, I think Craig would be saying this is fabulous. It's a really, really good report. I really enjoyed the way that it was put together. It was easy to read, so congratulations for that. I do have a question around sort of some of the vacancy rates in social care, which is not a problem that I necessarily has just found in Hillingdon. I think it's found countrywide. But how is recruitment adjusting to the sort of London-wide market? Because I understand there's different rules for London. How's it adjusting to London-wide market? How are we competing, and how are we encouraging people to come and do social care in Hillingdon?
Yeah, this is last year's report, so when you see next month, 6 months, you'll see an improved picture. It is a tough market, I think, for all of us. You know, those key public sector roles are particularly qualified social workers. I'll say the royal we, but I'll probably have to give Taz and her ADs the credit for this. Over the last sort of 12 months or so, there's been a real drive. A lot of our vacancies didn't leave gaps for children, but they were filled by interim staff. And sometimes they were long-term interim staff, but it's not the place that we want to be, and that's been greatly reduced. One, through some of the London Pledge work, because we made it a bit less attractive, and if an interim member of staff wanted to go from here to Harrow, then they couldn't. They could go outside London. But we also had a better deal with our interim staff around notice periods and, you know, those conditions, access to training, and that's enabled us to convert a lot of those permanent staff. So for some of it, it looks very much the same, because, you know, I'll use Betty to keep her anonymous. So Betty's been a social worker here for 3 years. Last year she was a vacancy, this year she's not, because she's now a permanent member of staff. But it is a struggle. It is something that we're on all the time. It's always reviewed. We have to look at our offer. What are we? And what we hope to offer is the culture, because the money's about the same across London. You know, we're not outliers. We don't pay less. We can't afford to pay hugely inflated prices, and neither should we. So it's about the culture, the training, the support, the supervision. Those are the things I think help us retain. I also took over this year as the workforce lead for Pan London, so I get an extra benefit of driving some of that work for us. I share with my colleagues, well, but it helps us really think about the things that I get to see. Well, what are they doing in Enfield that increase that? Would that work for us in Hillingdon? And we have our grow our own. We have practice educators. We have a number of them. Enables us to take a lot of students. That helps us then hopefully recruit those students. We have the apprenticeship programme, but it's a bit old hat now, but it was one of the first in the country. So we actually have now fully grown skilled social workers out the end, and we have that programme ongoing alongside taking in newly qualified staff and providing that support in their first year. But it is ongoing, but it has got better. And I don't think, and I've not seen Ian's diagram yet, but I'd be surprised if we were as high up on the list. So yeah.
Okay, great. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a jolly good read, isn't it? And I've used my sort of red pen, no, not my red pen, in going through it and being a primary school teacher at heart and ticking and crossing and crossing. But one thing, it's data-based. It's all data-based. Now, Hillingdon has had an issue with data. How confident are we that the data is sound and clear and accurate? Because without that firm basis, it starts to get wobbly. So my first question is about how robust is our data?
Almost regretting telling Ian I didn't have to be here since he holds it. To be clear, we have been on a journey. I think that's absolutely right, and I think there's high levels of confidence. There will be the odd thing that will trip us up now and again. It might be data entry, but we have gone through this. The ADs and service managers are engaged. We see these dashboards every day. They see an anomaly, they're feeding back, the data quality is getting better. We've done a load of work in Send that you're aware of, so the accuracy there, if there's any surprises, I'd be shocked. And in children's social care, the numbers are small enough that we get that level of confidence. Because if I look at something and it says, oh, Julie, you've all of a sudden got 12 residential placements, well, I know that's not right. But there is constant engagement, and the dashboards that sit behind this, I think we're about years and years ahead of where we were the last time we were inspected. Even that was only in 2023 across the range. So the staff are cross-referencing, they're using it. This is going into the team meetings, the service meetings. So I think the confidence levels are high, with the caveat that somebody might type something inaccurately in and we might not pick it up for a couple of weeks, but reasonably high.
Thank you. Miss Little.
Oh, right. Well, there were a few crosses, lots of ticks, but there were a few crosses, and the cross that I have particular concern about is the NEAT audit on page 40. And I'm looking at where we stand with our neighbouring boroughs, Hounslow and Ealing, in particular Ealing, and we're not doing as well. And trying to capture those youngsters that are not in education, employment, or the other aspects of their life is really of concern. So where are we with actually challenging this? Because I think I've asked this question before on another occasion, but the figures don't seem to be good for us.
I'm going to pass you over to Catherine, and she'll not be surprised about that, because she'll have the hot off the press, and she will talk you through.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So in terms of the neat things that we've been doing in the Borough recently, what we've had for the first time this year is a whole team of what we're calling neat trackers. So now what isn't displayed in this data that you're seeing is our numbers of not known, which is actually significantly lower than the London average. So whereas other boroughs might have lower numbers of neat, they may have higher numbers of not known children. What we're seeing is actually the success of our trackers, that we're finding where those children are, we're realising they're not in education, employment or training, and then we're trying to support them back into those opportunities. And one of the things that we've really focused on is more early help. So looking at when they're 14, 15, 16, what can we do before they've left secondary school? We've piloted with our local college like a carousel where they're doing more vocational subjects, for example, because we often find that that's a big gap for us. Lots of children don't want to go on to do academic subjects necessarily at level 3, so we're trying to look at other alternatives there. So we are broadening the market, which is a work in progress. But I think the data isn't quite what it seems would be my suggestion, just because I know that our not known figures are much lower. They're less than 1%, whereas other boroughs it's much higher.
Could we have that stat next time then, please?
Yeah.
Ms. Little.
Thank you. As others have said, it's a very attractively presented report, and like Councillor Sweeting, I like having numbers in front of me. My question relates to the youth justice element, where we seem to have done quite well with keeping children out of it in the first place, but a lot less well with them once they've got into it, and the offending rate is high. Is that a special priority for the team dealing with this, and what sort of steps are they taking?
Reoffending is always a priority for us, and again, it's absolutely not defensiveness, but it's about understanding this. Because we've brought the numbers of first-time entrants down to so low, our percentages then look significantly higher. Our reoffending rate in the cohort, and we track for the 12 to 18 months afterwards, what we see is we've got a higher percentage as a result, but a lower number of offences. So we've done a lot of analysis. I chair our Youth Justice Partnership Board, so we've asked those questions and had some of the evidence presented to us then. And what we see in Hillingdon is children may come to the attention and offend. Before we're aware they've offended, they'll have probably re-offended again. It might be possession of cannabis is one of the most common things. So they've been picked up, there's an offence, they're going to court, it happens again before we get to the intervention point. That doesn't mean we're not trying to lower it, and it's absolutely okay. And we've done that by putting liaison and diversion into the police station, so when they're arrested we get to go out. We don't need to wait until something comes through from the court to tell us that this child has committed an offence. So as a focus, it is something we track. To say I'm not worried about it wouldn't be right, because we are, because it's other offences, but the percentages do skew. As you can see, if you've got 8 young people and 2 of them re-offend, you've got a higher percentage than if you've got 105. So, but we have done a deep dive at the Youth Justice Partnership Board to really understand that.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Just reading the report, some really good stuff going on in the council, such as the take-up of early years free child places. I think that's so beneficial, and that's I send a 2-year-old to one of nurseries as well. So that 30 hours really does help, and I know a lot of people are really grateful for that. My question's around the EHCP plan. So the 20-week completion rate is showing underperformance, How much is this delay is costing the council compensation and tribunal cases, and what steps are we taking to improve compliance?
I think I will do it the other way round if that's okay, because it makes more sense. Because we do track the tribunals. Tribunals challenge cost complaints generally don't come because it's taken us an extra week or so to get to a final point. Those are usually around choice of school, where parental preference is generally where we get the challenge. And we have had more challenge, and we have had an increase in tribunals because of the drive for inclusion. And I think some of the messaging that is out there that Abby is hopefully trying to dispel is that if it's an INMIS then it's better, if it's independent then it's better quality. And I think parents, quite rightly, we all want the best quality for our children. So that's where we get the sort of cost. Although we are successfully, by focusing on mediation, reducing the amount that eventually get to tribunals. Those tend to be the bigger, more contentious, but very costly cases. In terms of the 20-week time scale, it has improved. You will see we're not hitting our target. We set ourselves at 85%. We are now doing substantially better than national. And the 20-week target is tricky. We put in more officers to do that. We've moved officers to focus only on reviewing so that we have more capacity to do the assessments. And we're always relying on the system, and that's not blaming other people, because sometimes we're just not quick enough. Is that collation, social care or health data, checking in with the parents. But it is an improving picture, and again the SEND 2 data that comes out is better than this. This goes back to March, and we're continuing to see that it improving. That's also improved because we're managing, I think, you will see on there the yes to assess. So we aren't assessing everything. We're being far more robust, because if we assess every request that comes through, then we overwhelm the system and we don't really focus on the right children. But yeah, that's all part of, Abby has a 10-step improvement plan, and 20-week time scale is definitely on there, and it's something that we track and monitor.
Great. Councillor Garg.
Yeah, just a quick one. So, the council faces some financial challenges. How is that affecting the ability to deliver the new local government outcomes programme? And the priorities such as neighbourhoods and health and well-being?
Okay, that's an interesting point. This is a children's committee, so it's not quite, my entire area. What I can say is our financial situation and the wider financial climate hasn't prevented us from doing what we need to do. And I would actually say it's sort of the necessity and invention point. Not that I'm asking for any less funding from any sources at all, just let me be clear on that, has enabled us to think differently, how we work with our partners, how we work better in our localities, how that we're using our assets in a different way. So I haven't as yet seen a negative impact on that, but we don't know what's going to happen, what the settlement's going to be, and what the new demands in terms of reform in children's and education is.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? No? Okay, so we need to note this report, noted, and provide potentially some comments to be presented to full council. So, yeah, Councillor Sweeting, we could maybe do this offline.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I think it is a good report, but there are some issues that we do need to share with the Cabinet.
All right, so let's move on then to agenda item 7, which is the care strategy for children and care experienced young people. So is it Poppy and Taz? Poppy?
That's me, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I'm here just to present our care strategy. It's not new, it's what we already do, it's just we have now put it on in a strategy, so it's open to everybody. And it sets out how we are going to improve outcomes for children in care and our care experienced young people. It it just sets out our responsibilities, it sets out the local priorities, and what actions we are going to take to strengthen, support our young people, especially through their journey through care as well as into adulthood. Our vision is simple. We want every child and every young person in our care to have the same opportunities to thrive as any other young person, any other child. So the strategy just provides a clear framework as to how we're going to achieve that, focusing on stability, focusing on well-being, and transitions into adulthood. There are some common themes that run across in terms of what we want to achieve, and in terms of stability and permanence for young people. And I think, our fostering offer has gone a long way to support us in that already. What we have seen is there has been a reduction in placement moves, meaning that young people and children are able to build that relationships within the communities and within their respective placements. We'd also taken on board language that young people have told us they want us to use. We just came from the inspirational event, and there's a care experienced young person that is giving a speech, and he said he didn't want to be called lack because he's not lacking anything, and you're not lacking. So, and that's what young people have said to us loud and clear. So you hear our language has changed. We use cared for children. For those for under 18, we'd use care experienced young people. For those that are over 18, we don't talk about cases, we talk about children. We don't talk about placements, we talk about homes. And I think the strategy is just reflecting some of those priorities that we have. It has been developed together with young people, partners, other professionals, which I think gives it a really solid base. And I mean, I think it's probably best if I open it up for questions, but I kind of like the quote from the young person, because we did ask young people to comment on the strategy, and the young person said, every time I thought of something, you had covered it, so it didn't lack anything.
Yeah, thank you, Poppy, and thank you to all the officers who've been involved in putting this together. I also know in corporate parenting as well, when we hear from young people themselves how much they feel empowered and very much welcome. Their voice is very important, so it's great to capture that, and it's really delightful to hear that they've been involved in collating this and putting this together, so thank you for that. Miss Little.
Thank you. On my way here I did eavesdrop on that meeting, and he really was an inspirational speaker that was speaking as it happened. I welcome this document and the ambitions that it has, but the question I wanted to ask is about the ambition of the children. Where do we look to give them the inspiration to be a better achiever? Is it to the people like the foster parents? Is it something coming corporately? Where does it come from?
I would say it's a collective responsibility. It's the responsibility of all of us, because we, everybody around this table, as well as everybody in that young person's life, whether it's education, teachers, foster carers, we will put on additional events like today to have inspiration where they could hear from their peers. So I would say it is a collective response.
I'd also like to add that we've opened up opportunities for young people. So we've got quite a few that are employed by Hillingdon. We also have them come into events. They sit on our interview panels. They do voluntary work with us. They help us not just through this strategy, through other strategies as well. We look at actually CV writing. We look at what skills they lack. We work very, very closely with our virtual school. We say corporate parenting, and I know that young people say that we don't like the word corporate parenting, so we are moving away from that, but we are the parents of these young people. So it is, I think, in corporate parenting panel, we had Councillor Denny's offering an experience in terms of what it's like to work in the law setting, and young people had gone out there. We look at looking at actually what are the opportunities they have within. We've had our participation team take them out to if I remember correctly, Snowdown, just recently, learning different skills, independence. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this area, and you might be able to hear that in my voice as well. We will do anything and everything that we can to support them, and if there is anything that you can contribute as a panel, like as a committee, I'd be more than welcome to have that conversation, and I welcome that every time I go to any meeting, because it is for all of us to do, not just one for us to do singly. So Alex, come.
Just a very, very quick addition, because we're all very passionate about this area. Obviously, that's why we're in these roles, in these jobs. But in terms of aspiration, ambition for our young people, and listening to what they want to do and try to support that is one of the core functions we all do in our different roles. And I think I'll just highlight in the actual strategy, when you look at the core principle, that one of the core principles is that aspiration and ambition. So we are trying to promote the aspiration and ambition. I think Julie mentioned about, or someone mentioned, Captain mentioned about different ways of promoting education, looking at vocational education, looking at some young people want to be academic, some young people want to be vocational. We do events like the one we just witnessed very short, very briefly, about building that inspiration, giving young people a voice and listening to what they're telling us. So I think that is woven through everything we do.
Yeah, I just have a question, Taz, about you mentioned that the young people want to move away from corporate parenting, or that term. What are they saying they would like instead? Curious.
Very good question. However, we haven't got quite far there, because they don't actually know what they want to be called as that. But they have. We're continuing to work with them, and that's why when we have drafted this, and that's why it is a draft strategy, because there is kind of a little bit of a balance. Some say, well, actually, corporate parenting is a well-known. It's well known, and actually we'll keep with that. Some young people don't like that. So it's a work in progress, but you'll see that there's a lot of language change within the document, and that comes from what our children tell us. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Can I just briefly say that for this committee and for other committees like this, terms like looked after children, corporate parent, they do have a standing in law and legislation regulations. So sometimes in our statutory reports, and some of those terms will be used because that's a kind of national term that is for national returns and that sort of thing. But in terms of how we talk to one another, how we talk to our young people, and how we refer to their voices in here, that's where we are looking at sort of listening and changing some of that.
Alex said exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say there probably is going to be a local language as well as a national language that we.
Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, and thanks for the report as well. It's very informative. I just got a quick question about youth justice. It was mentioned on, I think, page 60 of the report, or page 12, whichever way you look at it. There's both numbers on there. I was just asking what are we doing about reoffending, because it's one of the things that has been highlighted as an issue. I know Mr. Little brought this up earlier in the last agenda item, but I just thought, because it's mentioned specifically in this, I might ask.
There is a lot of work that's been done with reoffending, and as Julie mentioned within our update, that it has been brought down. We're looking at all the diversional work that we are doing. There's lots of reports that have come about in terms of stop and search, in terms of what's been brought out, and we've done lots of work on the board. We've done at the moment we're looking at a delivery plan in terms of what that looks like. We've had really good buy-in from all of our partners. We've had young people placed on that. We've had victims on that as well to really help us steer that strategy. You will be seeing soon the strategy coming out, an updated strategy for YGS, which will really go through all the work that we have done with the reoffending. And again, I can say that I am actually quite proud of the numbers, because they have reduced significantly, and we are continuing to look at that as a priority and an area of focus.
Can I just add? We also, in terms of our practice, we have what we call a high-risk hub, where we bring all those young people that are known to youth justice that we're concerned about, so we can sit around the table and formulate a collective plan and have strategic and senior management oversight as well.
Sorry, can I just add to that? When Poppy mentions high risk hub, that's not just for our reoffending young people, but it's about how we prevent that. So you'll only have a couple on that who have actually been reoffending, but it is about how we do that intervention, prevention, early help. How we get in the right time, So that's really brought those rates down, and we will continue to do that. And as you see with the reforms, and we have mentioned in the last in the last committee that we've had a huge transformation, and now we have an adolescent service as well. So within that adolescent service, there's specialists. I say specialist workers, but those who really understand those risks and work with those young people day on day.
Okay, Councillor Sweeting.
There's just a couple of general comments. Well, it's a very comprehensive strategy, well written and full of information, and I thank the teams for putting this together. All I would say is it obviously needs regular looking at scrutiny, and I know it comes to us quite regularly, but it's important to get the voice of our young people there as well whenever possible, maybe even more than just annually, maybe biannually, because they're at the sharp end, they're the ones that know. So that's my general comment. Another one is a bit more serious, and that is, yes, we are supporting our youngsters all the way through for 25, but what happens next? Do we have any statistics, for example, on how our youngsters are doing after they are no longer our youngsters? I mean, there was a report on a terrible case yesterday when one of the bits of information was talking about care leavers, and the fact that in some areas, I'm not suggesting Hillingdon, in some areas the statistics countrywide suggest that there are some care leavers that don't end up the way that we had hoped that they would end up. Do we have any statistics on the long-term travel of our youngsters?
I'll probably mention something on that, and on the first point that you mentioned, Councillor, about our young people reviewing how well we do and keeping this under review. I can absolutely reassure that everything we say in the strategy, it's interwoven into our practice, and we do have a significant numbers of checks and balances in our practices. That includes for children who are cared for. We have their regular reviews. They are done by independent reviewing officer, is looking at impact, is looking at where we are, and then everything we said we're doing here, we said we're going to do it because we really want to do it. And in terms of the statistic, I don't think we have any statistic at hand to share tonight about further in life trajectory. And I'm not quite sure in terms of having a sort of one golden record of the resident to see exactly what the entire journey was. I don't think we are that sophisticated in terms of data just yet. Definitely now we're striving to get to that point. But what I would say is that one of our commitments, and you'll see in this strategy and other strategies, and I'm sure this committee have heard it before, we have a strong commitment to helping our young people in their independence, helping them into getting into a place where they are able to live independently, when they're able to live in their own homes, when they're able to have a job, when they're able to have a qualification, and all those sort of things. And we are doing that through a variety of ways. Obviously, support until the age of 25, if they want to be in contact with us. Some of them don't. Some of them, age of 21, they go to university and say, I'm independent enough. But sometimes they do come back to us and say, actually, I'm struggling with this. And we're always going to be there for them. We're always going to pick up the phone. We're always going to keep in contact with them. Send them a birthday card or something and just ring them now and then, how are you doing? So we're doing that. For some of the others who are not quite ready at the age of 18 to be going out there in the world to get their properties together, their tenancy and things like that, we're piloting the Stay in Close scheme, which will mean that we still provide some level of accommodation, some level of support, and addressing some of their needs that they have in their pathway plans, because every young person, when they leave care, when they move into independence, will have a pathway plan, and we'll be addressing the needs across the board based on that pathway plan. So I think we're very good at supporting towards independence. I think we're very good at building those pathway plans around the child needs. I think we're very good at keep providing that support to get our young people to a strong level of independence.
I just want to add to Alex, because Alex has kind of given you a comprehensive answer to that, but we also have young people who do have additional needs, who do need to be supported, and the book doesn't end at children's social care because they're becoming adults, and that means that they need adult support. So we don't actually start transitioning at 18, we start transitioning at 14 and a half and 16, at 16 and a half, 17, what are those needs? Let's assess those needs, and ensuring that those right services are in place for those young people. Sometimes they have multiple services in place, so they can have children's services and adult services in place because they are entitled to a personal advisor up until the age of 25. We also have a duty system in place where young people don't want to engage with having the formal pathway plans, or I don't want to have a review, I don't want a number of people around me, I don't want to be speaking to people, but they do know that they are able to contact us on that duty line, regardless of whether they are allocated an active PA or not. But apart from that, we also have our keeping in touch. So we keep in touch with all of our young carers. If we've got contact numbers, if we've got email addresses, we write to them to keep in touch with them and see how they're doing. And through some of those keeping in touch, we find that actually, yes, young people do need some support, and we encourage that support. We cannot enforce that support because it is voluntary and it is up to that young person. But there is a lot of advice, guidance, and support out there. And as I said, we've created apprentice roles. We've created quite a lot of co-production roles. With the new reform, we're looking at real co-production, real children's voices. What do families think? And I'm proud to say we've got 2 young people joining us soon, just waiting for their DBSs to be cleared. But once they're cleared, they'll be joining us. But I will go as far as saying that there are some in education. We don't close young people at 25 if they're finishing off their education. For example, I've had a 27-year-old when we've closed it because we were supporting them through their education in university and they had the potential. So it will be a needs base, and that won't be for everyone, but there is that. And we've had young people contact their PA and say, "I'm getting married. Would you like to come? Would you like to attend my wedding?" So there's real kind of really solid relationships there, and we have some really, really good PAs who really, really go that extra mile.
Thank you for that. Councillor Batt.
Thank you, Chair. I echo sentiments of my colleagues. Really comprehensive strategy, so thank you for that. You talk about in your strategy better health and well-being support, including mental health, which I think it's a very important topic. Many care experienced young people tell us usually I get quite a lot of these queries where access to CAMS and adult health, mental health services is always a struggle to get hold of. I'm wondering what new levers you have as part of your strategy, or any kind of agreements perhaps with the NHS that you're looking to improve.
It's always an area that we want to improve on because we know the difficulty in accessing services, but I think what we do have is those open lines of communication, and I think we all have a common goal. So we meet quite regularly with CAMS and with colleagues in ICB to promote that. We also have a team in-house, our MAPS team, who support our young people when and as needed. We will on occasion tap into independent provisions depending on the young person's needs. We have a provision, we have a contract with AskJan, which provides that sort of therapeutic support for young people over the age of 18. They offer you 6 sessions, free sessions, and then thereafter if you need more you can. There's lots of opportunities that we do tap into.
And can I just add to what Poppy said? Poppy said AskJan, and AskJan is a service that provides counselling. So that's 6 sessions of counselling to the young person, and that's open to all our care experienced young people. But there are other ways of working with young people, and it's not always the medical ways. There is ways in terms of how we promote for example now, the aspiration work that we're doing, in terms of how we support them through that. We have football with children every Tuesdays now, I believe. It's not Fridays anymore because obviously people have got commitments, and it's like, take out night on Fridays. But it's actually talking to young people, being with young people and having that extra time with them to enable them to really have those open discussions. And I will always say it's based on relationships, because it's based on those positive relationships, those strengthening those relationships, and that's your 50%, you're there in terms of that mental health support. But there will be times that they do need that extra support, and we do work very, very closely with our health and ICB, and then we have monthly meetings as well, and if there are any concerns that we believe that actually we need to look at this in more detail, we will escalate as well if we need to, and we have an escalation policy in place.
I can't help but adding something to that because, as I said, this is one of the area of passion, I think, for all of us. But just to say that we're also working with our ICB colleagues in their sort of waiting well strategy and commitment, because during that period of time, waiting for assessment, waiting for formal appointment, we do have through them as well a range of services that are available to children, to families, to the carers. MAPS, as we mentioned, the MAPS is a really good initiative that we had in place for a number of years, and I think you're going to be hearing later on in this committee about MAPS and their role. We're working with foster carers as well, and that is a survey that we are commissioning from CNWL, our primary healthcare provider, which works very well, and it's been having good results for a number of years. And the other thing, which I know we talked about before, it's a statutory role, but it's really important. I think all our looked after children will have a strengths and difficulties questionnaire that's going to be applied throughout every year in terms to assess their well-being, to assess their needs. And the idea of the strengths and difficulty questionnaire, the lower the score, the better. The children who score 17 or higher, automatically they will get referring to MAPS for support for that immediate counselling. Because if you think of MAPS, it's like tier 2 counselling, tier 2 intervention. And then if MAPS is not enough, because sometimes it's not enough, then from MAPS it goes straight into CAMS. So we have all this continuum of care in terms of that mental health. But I think that approach, the early intervention, if you like, approach to well-being that Taz mentioned, I think that is at the core of everything we do, and that is really important for our young people in terms of their development.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? No? Great. Okay, so we can bring this agenda item to a close. We just need to note the report, noted, and provide comments, any comments to be included in the report to the Cabinet member to consider this in due course. So maybe we can do that as well. We can take that offline again. But thank you very much. Thank you for the passion. Really welcome. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 8, which is the review into fostering, and it's our first witness session. Who am I handing over to? Donna? Natalie, maybe? Alex?
Yeah, sorry, I will just say a couple of words at the beginning, and obviously welcome the scrutiny, welcome the critical friend of role of this committee. The way we're going to be, we thought about talking about it tonight is just to kind of give a bit of presentation of some of the areas. One being setting the scene of who the foster carer are, what our recruitment looks like, and what our support looks like. Then we're going to be talking a bit about the achievements. We're going to talk a bit about the impact, and we're going to be highlighting some of our future plans, and then obviously open to the committee for any questions. So I will hand over to Donna for the first part.
Thank you. So I think, based on what we've been talking about this evening, I think one of the things that's come to mind is that Hillingdon has a really good village for our children, and without a village and a good community or cared for children would really be at a disadvantage. And I think we're quite proud, and I think we are quite, as you said, quite excited and quite motivated in ensuring that our children have a good village. And how we've contributed to that village is about the fostering service, the strategy, and looking at how we recruit the best possible carers for our children, because they do deserve that. So I think one of the things I wanted to just briefly to kind of give you a bit of figures in regards to our strategy and what the activity is where recruitment's concerned. So Hillingdon Fostering Offer was launched in May 2024, and to improve recruitment and the outcomes for cared for children. I think what's really highlighted and we're quite excited about is that the recruitment of foster carers has been highly successful, with over 120% increase in inquiries compared to last year. And Hillingdon is also part of the Foster with West London hub, and I'm really quite happy to say that we've been receiving some of the highest numbers of inquiries, of over 127 among the 8 local authorities. So I think that's really quite good, benchmark in which we're working towards even further numbers to increase our pool. In that, we've got over 20% of inquiries that are converted to expression of interest. Most rejections are due to unsuitable requests or living environments. And then we've also participated and we're part of the Care Friends app, and this was introduced early in September, where it incentivizes our foster carers to refer new applicants. So it's an app that we've launched, and our own foster carers can promote and help with our recruitment strategy. And they're quite, they're quite excited about it. And from the numbers that I've seen from Fostering with West London, we're also leading on the leaderboard in regards to that. So we are at 18 compared to a lot of the other local authorities, to the point where Brent has consulted with us in regards to knowing what our strategy is. So that is something that I'm quite excited about. There are currently 78 fostering households, with 30 more expected to be approved by the end of the financial year. And that's a marked improvement in regards to our numbers and what we're doing. So it's a lot of reception that's happening and receptiveness. Of those, 34 households are single carers, and the remainder are couples. So we're also trying to widen our ethnicity and our religious pool and reflecting the diversity in Hillingdon, because, our young people deserve that. So we've got 34 single carers, the rest are couples, over 50% from the global majority, and the age ranges of our foster care is quite expansive. You're talking from the age of 20 to 80 years old. So we're not pardoning anybody. We want everybody. We're very inclusive where that's concerned. Our longest foster carer, 40 years with us, and that is a massive achievement. And that shows the level of dedication and the quality of carers and commitment that we have. 12 connected carers provide family link fostering for 17 children, so we're not excluding our connective and our SGO carers and family members and kinship who want to look after their own kin, which is really quite positive. So it's a very good and stable number that we do have as well, and they contribute massively to our sufficiency strategy. So that's really quite good. And for the first time, we've had a foster carer who has been recruited to provide parent and child placements, and we're also looking to increase that number as well. I think we've got one more recruited or have shown interest in doing the parent-child placement. So overall, I think our growth strategy in fostering is quite positive. We're heading in the right direction. And the fact that we're introducing specialist placements and reflecting our commitment to meeting the needs of our care for children is really quite positive to know. And I think we're going to continue. We're going to continue to build on the momentum that we've developed to sustain our recruitment. We're hoping to hit next year the 100 mark if we can, which I think would be really quite good. It gives our children the opportunity to have a wider pool of expert and specialist carers, and I think we're on the right track, and I think this part of the village is doing our part in making sure that our children have the best that they can possibly have. So I'll move on to my colleague Natalie.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the support that we offer our foster carers and how we judge and track impact on children. So foster carers in Hillingdon can earn up to £1,500 a week for caring for children with higher or additional needs, where the requirements of carers are higher, so we ask more of them to be able to meet those children's needs. But we also offer annual energy bill contributions, reductions in council tax, and reimbursement of Merlin passes to encourage those really positive, fun activities that people can have as families. We offer trauma-informed training, so we mentioned MAPs earlier. They're a key part of supporting our fostering households, and access to over 100 online and face-to-face courses provided, with additional consultations with the MAPs team. So as Alex said, it's not necessarily about working directly with the child, but working with foster carers to tweak the way in which that they are responding to triggers and behaviours and that kind of thing. Our recruitment uses real-life stories and digital tools to attract carers from diverse backgrounds. We mentioned the new app that we're using. We also have Hillingdon Friends and those kinds of things, so we're using the real-life examples. Our foster carers are celebrated through events and award schemes, including the Foster Carers Appreciation Awards that we had earlier this year. And we also have some recognition awards. So we had the rewards for resilience, sibling support, community impact, exceptional care, and 2 long service awards, the 40 years and a 10-year long service. We've recently introduced a Star by Far award bi-monthly to recognise foster carers that are going above and beyond and go the extra mile, and they receive a token of appreciation from us and some recognition for the additional care or extra mile that they may be going. And all the way through we ask for feedback from carers, children, professionals that we work with. So we highlight where we can positive relationships and experiences and seek to actively share those good news stories when we get them.
So I'm the head of the virtual school, and for those of you, many of you probably know, but for those of you that maybe don't, all of our children that are looked after aged 2 to 18 have an allocated education officer in the virtual school team that coordinates and leads and chairs their termly PEP meeting. That's their personal education plan. Foster carers, social workers, designated teachers, virtual school officers come together to celebrate successes and note areas of praise and development and set smart targets. And foster carers' voices are really, really important in those meetings, and our children that are living with foster families do have better outcomes than those that are not. And our team are big fans of doing everything that they can to work alongside the village to ensure that we are involved in decision making for these children, that where there is any signs of school issues affecting home, that's raised early and addressed early. So placement and home stability is a priority of every PEP meeting. It's not just a school-based discussion. We take a very holistic approach. In order to sustain that stability and promote it, we help designated teachers understand the journey of a child in care and the importance of the foster experience. We provide training to designated teachers about this, as well as targeted training for our foster carers. So this year we did one on raising the well-being and resilience of foster carers that are caring for children with challenging behaviours. And in February we are providing training for foster carers about helping children through natural endings and transitions, such as key stage and school changes, because that's when we can sometimes see issues arise. I feel that children that are having the support of the foster carer and the team around the foster carer generally do better. MAPS will come to our PEP meetings, supervising social workers. It's a whole team approach, and I think that our children are very much benefiting from that.
Okay, over to me for the vision of the village, because we're talking about that village that takes to raise a child, definitely. And I think, goes without saying that we'll continue to prioritise our recruitment and retention of our foster care. I think it's important to mention retention as well, because we are getting very good at recruitment, probably one of the best in this side of London, so that is really good to see. But also I think we're getting really good at retaining good foster carers and retaining strong foster carers. Of course, quite often people decide to retire, they will decide to do something else. But for those who are still committed to fostering, are always there for them, always there to encourage and to retain. We are also looking at developing some specialism around our foster care, to do like specialist recruitment in our foster care for instance, children with severe disabilities, or adolescents and various other needs of our children, because that is where we see a need. We haven't mentioned so far our care offer approach to looking after our children, and the care offer interlinks very, very closely with what we discussed before about the residential homes, about children who can't live at home. They come into care, some of them go into a residential home, but what we don't want to do is for a child to go into a residential home and just to stay there until they're 18. That's not our vision. Our vision is the child, if they go into residential care, that is not a destination, that is just a step along the journey. And then as soon as they're starting to be ready to step out of a residential setting into a family environment, to identify a foster care for them, who understand the needs, who understand how to meet those needs, and they work in parallel with the care home or with the children's home, until that child is ready to go into the family home. So that's the vision of the care offer, and that's why recruiting specialists in foster care it's critical for our vision for the next period. We're also looking at recruiting out of hours foster carers who are available at all hours, because as we know, we are a port authority, and quite often we have young people arriving through Heathrow at any hour, and we don't want them to stay in the airport. We don't want them to kind of be, to go somewhere in a support accommodation. If we have foster carers available, they will be able to provide that sort of nurturing care. And then, of course, these children who are becoming looked after, they're not asylum seeking arriving. They are our children who, for whatever reason, have to go into live with a foster carer overnight at the weekend and hours when is not kind of the core hours. We also, in order to promote that care offer, in order to promote that mobility of our children between residential, between foster care, we're also piloting the fostering placement coordinator, which will be a person who will be looking at where the children are, where the foster carers are, where the vacancies in the various care homes are, and trying to sort out that puzzle in such a way that we know where all our children are going, when they're going, and who's available to for new placements and so on and so forth. And the other thing that I want to mention, because I'm sure many of you have heard about, is the Mockingbird scheme. So Mockingbird scheme, it's a license scheme that is recognised everywhere, and it does look at providing a hub for a group of foster carers who are supported by experienced foster care in terms of the care for the children. We did pilot it out, so we started last year. We did a year pilot. We tried some different things. Some things worked, some things we learned from. And where we are now in a full process of reviewing the learning from the first year, and we are looking to complete that review before Christmas, and then into the next year to see where we go with the Mockingbird, if we have one or more hubs going forward. So those conversations are happening as we speak. So by the time we come here next time and you ask us again, we will have a bit more information about what the outcome of that review was and what the direction of travel is. And I suppose the other thing I think was said before, we remain committed to work with foster care, to work with our children, young people, to listen to what they're saying, and to embed that in what that we're doing. We welcome the scrutiny, welcome your recommendations, we welcome your view about those things that maybe we don't get quite right. That we can do things slightly different, or we can do things in a different direction. So with that in mind, I will just open it to the committee for any questions you might have.
Great, thank you all. It was really interesting to hear that. A question for me. As you know, that I used to sit on fostering panel myself, so I'm very aware of the recruitment process in terms of recruiting the foster carers. I understand, and I've seen the assessments that they have to undergo, all the questions, the scrutiny, the lines of inquiry about their background, their family experiences, etc. So we know that foster carers come from a diverse range of backgrounds and their own lived experiences that they bring to the role. For some of these foster carers, it can be quite challenging when they're when they have the child placed with them. Sometimes it can trigger something within them. So my question is, how are we supporting our foster carers throughout those more challenging times?
I will have a first go at the answer, and I'm sure Natalie will tell me all the things that I missed. But I think in terms of, obviously, you're right, Councillor, in terms of the recruitment process, the assessment that the foster carers have to go through, it's very thorough. It takes about 8 to 9 months for the assessment to be completed, for the process to be completed. It's a very intensive and to be fair, to a certain extent, quite intrusive process. And people who are going through the entire process, they really have to want to do it. They have to be committed to do this role, and that's why we get really good foster carers at the other end. And I am the agency decision maker, so all the foster carers, they get approved, they get signed off by myself, so I kind of see all those applications, I see all the assessments, I see all the discussions and all that sort of thing, so I'm pretty sure the people who are going through the process are properly assessed. But also, what is important during all this process is not just us assessing, we are working with them as well, and it's a training program that goes hand in hand with the assessment, so by the end of the process, we're doing both assessment and the training. And the other thing that we have done for our foster carers, all our foster carers are trained in the PACE model, which is a model of trauma-informed approach in working with children. And we deliver the same model of practice in our residential homes. Coming back to my care offer link, so residential home working with a child, they will use the PACE approach foster care use the place approach. They work together, same language, same approach, same work with the young person. So that helps, and the feedback, everyone who had that training, the feedback was significantly positive. So everyone welcomed the training, everyone can see the benefits of it. And the other thing that Natalie already mentioned, in situations like that, we have MAPS, who are a service that works with children, but they also crucially work with the foster care, because sometimes it's not about providing therapy to the child. Sometimes it's helping the foster care understand the behaviors, understand the source of the behavior, and understand what we can and should be doing as foster carer for that child to help them along the journey.
Thanks, Alex. I think as well, it's really about that supportive relationship between the foster carer and their supervising social worker. We all have things that come up for us in our day-to-day lives, and really that relationship needs to be strong enough that the supervising social worker can identify if something seems that it might be triggering or causing difficulty. So sometimes, for example, it can be transitions, and some foster carers can manage transitions, and they've done it repeatedly, and they know how to do that. But for others, they have a really significant impact. The bond they've built with the child that they care for is so significant, and that's what we want, that they need support when that child moves on. And so it's really about us thinking about, what does that support look like for you? What do we need to have in place? Do you need to take a bit of a break from fostering for a few weeks and have some, time to reset and maybe a breakaway? So things like that. We're relaunching our buddy system. We've been talking about that in the team today, so formalising the buddying system a little bit more. But we also have things like just coffee mornings and events and things that people can keep in touch and provide peer support to each other as well. And I think the new fostering families that are coming through, they are so diverse and they have such different experiences that, again, it just refreshes, I guess, the ability, I guess, to offer peer support by bringing those new experiences in. So, the excitement and the sort of enthusiasm, I guess, to work with children. We've had some really lovely examples recently of some newly approved foster carers really going the extra mile to care for our children. So it's really, again, relationships were mentioned earlier, but it's really about the relationships that we build with our foster carers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if I could talk about some of the makeup and the demographics of some of our foster carers. We spoke about people from different ethnic minorities, and we spoke about people from different religious groups, but I wondered around LGBT plus or LGBT plus Q carers, and the rate, families can be 2 mums and 2 dads now, or 2 men and 2 women, and I think that's important to recognise, and I'd like to hear about the work we're doing in that particular area. I'm also interested in situations we deal with, for a single carer. I'm perpetually single, right? And probably will be single forever. But say I fostered somebody, I can see members opposite nodding. I'm sure there's somebody for everybody. But on a serious note, if somebody was caring for a young person and then, I don't know, went out one evening and met the love of their life, and how do we integrate people coming into that scenario? Because that's something that will happen, right? So sort of 2 points there, and some of the sort of, I know that's a bit niche, but I was just thinking about it, so I just wondered how that would happen. Thank you.
Okay, so we do not discriminate. We do have single same-sex couples who are foster carers, and we've recently recruited another couple as well. And I think the same-sex couple that we have had for a year or so, they've provided a really good home for twins that are going on to be adopted, and we have been trying to get them to be part of our promotion for Hillingdon as well. So I think we definitely are leading the charge in having members of the LGBTQ plus community to be part of our village. So that's something that's there. If a carer who so happened to be single and they have found the love of their life, then we would review because we do have annual reviews for our foster carers, and if they want to be part of that a discussion would take place, and then we will actually review and do an updated assessment of that new family dynamic in that household, and look to take them to panel where Councillor Sullivan is also part of, and we won't discriminate. We will definitely assess them if that is what they want to do, and if that person wants to be a part of that family unit. So we will do that.
We actually have families where we've had situations like that in both directions. So we've had a single carer who met the love of his life, and we reassessed, and they're now a fostering couple. And we've sadly had the alternative as well, where someone's lost their partner and has continued to foster. And so it's about supporting people through those life changes, and taking that at the pace that's helpful. Obviously, if it's a child in the home already, we need to think about that child's needs and how we're supporting them. But these things happen in people's lives, and we respond to them.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered, in and around where young people, when they're slightly older, where they're making their own life choices, but they potentially come from a setting where they are hearing things that are, I don't know, sexist, racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, all the various different things that people may hear. And then they get placed with somebody that may fit into a demographic that they've been taught is terrible or awful, or given a perception about something. How do we deal with that situation? It sounds awful, prior to that, and potentially what that young person may think about it, and not putting potentially the foster carers in a difficult situation, but also, I'm not saying to change the young person's mind, but not placing them in a setting where maybe they've been taught this is terrible, wrongly, or, well, not rightly, but completely wrongly, but yeah. Does that make sense?
So we do have what you call a matching process in regards to our children, and we do ask social workers, and we did a massive overall of we call it a profile, but it's really about an all about me, where we set out the personalities of our young people, and those profiles, or those information, is shared with potential foster carers who could be a possible match. If they're not a possible match, but we do look at whether or not that would be a good home for that child, and we always try to challenge assumptions, and we're always trying to learn and be flexible and about teaching, but sometimes we will override, and we have had young people placed in homes where it's not a match, but a cultural match, or a cultural match or identity match, but they are a match in the sense that they are experienced carers who can provide stability. So there are incidences where we do look at the matching process, and we do try to make sure that it's a suitable match, but where it's not, and we do have a young person, we do have those discussions with that young person. We do basically have a transition period to see if the dynamics work or not. So we don't just put a young person, we have dialogue and communication, both sides of the spectrum in regards to our young people. So we do take a lot of things into consideration: culture, religion, identity, perceptions, stereotypes. All of those things do come in our conversation before we match or put any child in a situation where they may feel uncomfortable. It's different, but different isn't always bad, and that is something that the supervising social will work with the young person and the foster carer about. And this is where we have maps that also comes on board to try and do that. We have had young people who have been in homes where it's a different dynamic, and we've had challenges, but that is where you have the supervising social worker, the actual social worker from our Cared for Children service. So we do try and have a team or a community around this child in order to help to make it work. If it doesn't, we always review and move on, and we be able to start again in looking for something for what the child is, what's needed for the child. Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I was interested in the app that you mentioned, actually. Thought that was could be quite a good idea. Technology is always useful and works really well when it's like a matchmaking type service. But I'm also interested in A, how it works, and B, what kind of safeguarding mechanisms, safeguarding concerns are taken into account when using it.
So this was launched in Wales, this app, and the creator, and so it's already been trialled in Wales, and it's been very popular, and actually we saw a 30% increase in uptake of recruitment for foster carers. So it was something that we wanted to be part of. One, it gave us a wider net to cast in our recruitment, but it also enabled foster carers to be actively involved in that process of recruitment as well, because apart from the fact that we recruit foster carers, we want them to be feeling that they're part of what our journey is and our strategy, and not just to take from it. So that is something where the app it really helped in launching another part of our recruitment strategy. It was launched at the Foster Care Awards, Appreciation Awards recently. We have had Fostering with West London come, and they've explained and promoted, and we've worked quite closely with comms in what the different strategies and how you upload the app and how you update the information. It also helps us to be quite strategic in our recruitment, because we do want to have specialist carers, and that has helped us to really get it out there very quickly, and people have been responsive. We're currently assessing a foster carer who's one of our carers referred on, and they've come in from another agency, so we're having that as well. So people from independent fostering agencies coming and saying, well, we found this out, and through the Care Friends app, and we'd like to be have an initial visit to see how we go. There is cash incentive towards the app, but it's not a lot, but foster carers aren't doing that for the money. They really want to be part of it and making sure that they are able to identify good people for us to be part of. And we update it every week, or every 3 to 4 weeks, what information we get out there. And so it's been quite positive so far. As I said, we've got, we're on the leaderboard with 18 people who have shown interest and have actually refer people on. So yeah, it's something we're excited about, and we're still reviewing. We're going to be reviewing it in another couple of weeks with Fostering with West London.
And just very briefly add to that, I mean, we all know the kind of, one of the best way to spread the word of mouth, isn't it? That is quite important. That's quite strong out there. And as Donna was saying, we're quite committed to make our foster care become part of spreading that word, part of talking to other people, because it's much more meaningful for someone who does it speak to someone else that actually it can be done. I'm single, or I'm in this situation and I'm doing it and it works, and I can see the benefit. And we try to build on that. We try to capitalize a bit on that. And it does have a reward system built in. Yes, there is a reward, but the reward is kind of incremental depending on the journey of the referred person. So when they actually get to be approved foster carer and look after a child, then that's when you kind of achieve the full reward, if you like. You asked about safeguarding built into the application. There is definitely no details of any children that are shared with the application or anything like that. This is purely for someone to say, I have a mate who's interested in this. I think they'll be really good. They make the referral, and then through the app we kind of track where that person goes to the journey, just to enable that sort of incentive to be rewarded.
I just want to add on that in regards to, we do have a rigorous, check-in system. So if somebody is going to be assessed, it is quite rigorous in regards to our assessment of them, and we can tell fairly quickly whether or not there is mileage in pursuing or assessing these carers as well, any potential carers. So it is built in our assessment process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sweeting. Well, the enthusiasm of our officers comes across loud and clear over this issue, and thank you very much for your reports. Very, very informative. we've got a review here, and we've got a very speedy review here, with really only 2 witness sessions before we have to put things together. And it seems to me, by hearing you, that things have really moved on very quickly in the last year. So I'm sort of battoning it back to you. What can we do as a committee to make this relevant? Because all we've got are 2 sessions, and then we have to come up with our pearls of wisdom that we present to Cabinet. So how is our role going to help officers? Okay, we're going to get information from our foster and those that are in foster care. Yes, excellent. But then we've not actually got another coming together of officers to try to put all of that information into some sort of coherent whole. So I think that page 87, the lines of inquiry are excellent, but I think you're already doing all of this. So what can we add to the plate, please?
I think one of the things that I think, as I said at the beginning, we welcome scrutinies like this is because, first of all, obviously, you hear us, you can ask us to see the data of what we're doing, but also I think what is very important, you are very rooted in our communities, you represent your constituencies, you represent the people who you see every day, who speak to you every day, and we would really want to know if what's the word out there, what works, is our message getting out there? Are people responding to that? Are people feeling that is something that that we are advertising in a way that actually says it for what it is? That's sort of really making a difference to life of children. The other thing that will be, I think will be quite helpful will be to hear from yourselves some of the other things that we could do to tap into that sort of potential of communities in working with communities, working with our residents. And also, if there's anything that you think maybe we can do with yourselves more to both enhance the recruitment of foster carers, if you like, but also I think critically to retain some of the foster carers that we have and to promote what are the core of foster care, and that is that sort of commitment to making a difference and commitment to support our children. And the other thing is, I'm pretty sure. And when you're going to be talking to our foster carers and when you're going to be talking to our young people, they will tell you some things that maybe they didn't tell us. And if that's the case, I'll be more than happy to hear that. I'll be more than happy for us to build that into what we do. And I know, like many of you would have met our young people in various forums. They don't hold it back. They will say it as it is, and I think that will probably give you a bit of balance between what we do, what our aspiration ambitions are, what's available out there in our community, where are we at this point in time as a council, as a community, as a country, whatever it is, and how some of those things can be built into our thinking for the future.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have another? No? Or?
Well, it's just about the reaching out. I think that's a very good line of work, because one of my little comments is widen ethnicity, and I think that really would be a very good, hearty piece of work. Thank you.
Mr. Little.
Thank you, and again I admire the enthusiasm that we've heard. This is not a service I know a huge amount about, so I'm going to ask a question on the other side of what you've said to us. That is, you've talked about how you're recruiting foster carers and getting people in to do the work, but you haven't said anything about how much it's needed. I mean, how many kids have we got who'd like to be fostered, or we think it would be good for them to be fostered rather than the current arrangements we've got for them? And how well are we doing in that regard compared to others? So is your enthusiasm translating into effective performance? I suppose my question is.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Definitely. I mean, there was, fortunately, as it happens in the agenda of this council today, we also spoke about the performance indicators, and in one of the slides we show the type of placements that we're preferring for our children. And foster placement is definitely the preferred placement for those children who cannot live with their families. We're always going to be looking at family options for any child. That is by no ifs, no buts, it's always the first option. The best place for the child to live is with their families. Sometimes that's not possible, and then we start looking at connected carers, at extended family, friends, people around the family who child knows, who child finds familiar, so they don't go into a stranger's home, if you like. For some children, that is not possible for various reasons, and in those cases, that's when we are considering the foster care. The reason why foster care is important is because the family environment, children live within a family, they live into a home. If they remain locally, and we'll have a lot of our colleagues who are involved in those decision-making forums, who will be stressing to us the children should stay local. They should be, as much as possible, attend the same school, remain registered with the same GP, see their friends, have contact with the parents, because the fact the child comes into foster care, very rarely that child is not going to have any contact with their birth family. Sometimes he has to be supervised, he has to be managed in a certain way, but we promote that contact and retain that sense of identity and belonging for the child. So foster care is always the best option. Local placements, when it's safe to do so, are the best placement for the child. So I think where we are, so at the end of the year, we are over 50% of our placements were into foster care. That number is now higher. I don't have the numbers quite at hand now to tell exactly how many they are, but I know that the vast majority of our looked after children do live in foster care. Back to your question about how many foster carers are needed. Well, I mean, I don't think we necessarily put a number on that, because I think what we are committed to have is to have the right foster carer with the right set of skills for the needs of our children. And that's why we are sort of focusing our recruitment to those specialist skills, to the foster care for those children with disabilities, for adolescents. Adolescents are quite often, they are at a different stage in terms of their needs, in terms of development. So it takes a particular type of training, a particular type of placement to meet those needs of adolescents. So we're looking at what we need to do for some of the foster care to do that. So I don't think, hopefully, I really hope they'll be proven wrong one day. I don't think we're going to get to a point where we're going to say, yeah, it's fine, we have enough now. We can stop, because the foster care life, we've heard about one of our foster care who we celebrated recently for having fostered for 40 years. That is exceptional, and I think we all appreciate that. But foster care don't stay in fostering for 40 years, and people's lives move on, and they decide to do something. They decide to retire. So I think there's always going to be that sort of churn of foster care, just because life is like that. So we want to have that sort of ability to always recruit the right carer for our right children, from the right background, from the right ethnicity, and for all those areas.
The more foster carers we have, the more ability we have to match foster carers to the needs of our children, and so there isn't a finite number to ever have enough in that context.
I accept what you're saying, and don't disagree with it in any way, but it's still good to have an idea, so that we understand the life you're living and your environment that you're working in, that how long do children stay in these arrangements, how big is the churn on that side, how big is the churn in the foster parents, is it better to be trying to retain rather than recruit new ones? So indications along those sorts of lines of performance would be, I think, helpful for us to get our head round your world, if you like.
100%. I accept that, understand, and we'll provide you some number to figure about how many foster carers, how long they've been fostering for, and kind of what's the sort of average duration of someone kind of, fostering, maybe take out some of the outliner people who foster for 40 years and people for those exceptional people. So yeah, we'll provide you some of that information to help in the deliberation of the scrutiny.
Great, thank you, Councillor Gohill.
My question's already adequately answered by Alex earlier, so I'll let that go.
Great. Do we have any other questions or comments from anyone? No? Okay, thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for your passion as well and your enthusiasm. It's very much appreciated and welcomed. And yeah, please feel free to leave. I know it's been a long day for you guys as well. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 9, Cabinet Forward Plan. Any comments? No? Okay. And then agenda item 10, the work programme.
Oh, sorry, 9. I'm looking at the Cabinet Forward Plan, and there seems to be a sort of a different approach now. We've had quite a few of our reports that have in the past gone to Cabinet that have now been considered by the Cabinet member, so it's never gone as far as Cabinet. So we have the school organisation plan, the standards report, and we've actually got the care strategy, which is not going to Cabinet actually, although we're going to be making our comments known to the Cabinet member. There's also the area for admission arrangements. So is it now more of a policy that fewer things that we consider are going to Cabinet? Has there been a sort of discussion on this, or is there a certain sort of point when X will definitely go to Cabinet, but why? And so how is this organised?
Fine.
In terms of has it changed, not that I know of. All I'd say is more kind of service level things generally tend to be to the Cabinet member rather than the Cabinet. But yeah, in terms of a change in the way it happens, I don't think so.
No, the school organisation plan went to Cabinet. The standards committee, standards in our schools report always went to Cabinet, but didn't last time, and it's not going to this time. So there was a change there, and I don't know whether there's a discussion of the reasons why that happened or not.
So maybe, Ryan, if you just double check that and then just let us know, that would be great. Thank you so much. Agenda item 10, the work programme. Yeah? Councillor Sweeting?
I know that there's been some changes on the youth offer. There's been some new venues put on. Certain information has come through to us as councillors. I don't know whether it's possible just to have an audit of all the venues that have been used this year for the youth offer. And that's one thing. And secondly, we did talk about the membership of this committee and that we have got vacancies on it. I don't know how far further forward that has gone, because I've been in discussion with a person from the Church of England to see whether that has gone as far as him, and he's quite high up in the Church of England.
So I think on the second point, Ryan has already reported back, didn't you? I thought he circulated some information on that, Ryan.
Yeah, I think just it's kind of in hand to be done in line for next year.
Yeah. That was reported back. And in terms of your point about the youth kind of provision, I guess, just an update, maybe we can ask officers just for something brief, just to give us an update if possible. Ryan, thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, it's been a long evening, so I think we've all done really well. Thank you all for your contributions and have a safe journey home. Thank you.